I got married during a pandemic.
For those of you that don't know, I'm Maggie, and I recently got married on June 26th of 2020. Our wedding ended up looking so much different from what we had originally planned. It all ended up okay. So if you're somebody that's watching this video because you're about to get married or you've rescheduled your wedding and you're wondering if you should push it again, I hope that you can learn a little bit from what we did and just understand that even though something is not the way that you planned it, it doesn't make you any less married. So I think it's helpful if we start from the beginning just so that you can see kind of what our year looked like in conjunction with the wedding planning / replanning. We got engaged in July of 2019, July 1st to be exact, and we were on a trip with our friends in Split, Croatia. We traveled around for 2 weeks and didn't worry about wedding planning at all. So by mid to late August, we had our venue booked, and it was what we call an all-in-one venue because at the time, I said that I wanted wedding planning to be as easy as humanly possible, and joke's on me because nobody could have predicted a worldwide pandemic. In normal times, I feel like an all-in-one venue is definitely the way to go if you're somebody that wants to choose the least amount of vendors possible, because with an all-in-one venue, you typically get a day of coordinator, a place to get married and to have your reception, tables, chairs, linens, glassware, in-house caterer, in-house bartender, it's all there. So the only people that I had to book outside of that were my florist, my photographer, somebody to do hair and makeup, and our cake. And I will say, leading up to all of the sweeping changes that had to happen, our wedding planning process was relatively easy. We, of course, had the normal hurdles of settling on the guest list and determining what our budget could allow and things like that. But taking all that out of it, it was a very, very normal planning process. So everything was feeling pretty good, pretty normal. I feel like we really had most everything nailed down by around Christmas time or January of 2020. And then we decided to adopt a dog. So in February of 2020, long story short, I have a good friend that works at a shelter in Dallas, and Nash, the dog that you all know and love now, came through those doors. She sent me a picture of him kind of early. I adopted him on the spot. I hadn't even met him. I haven't seen him in real life. We just fell in love, and it was the worst decision we've ever made, because at the time Bryan was working like 90 hours a week. We didn't live together. It was a very hard co-parenting situation. Training a dog in an apartment is really hard, especially when you're trying to potty train them and take them out. And so honestly, stresses were really, really high in February and March just due to Nash. And that's just a normal puppy. He wasn't abnormally bad. He was actually a really good puppy, slept through the night and everything, but it was very poor timing. But we honestly would not go back and change anything because Nash was meant to be our dog and we love him, and he has been the ultimate highlight of 2020. At the time, we were definitely feeling a little bit crazy because it was adding a ton of stress to what was already a relatively stressful time. 1 week after I got Nash, I did get to go on my bachelorette party. We went to Colorado, and this was the one time during this entire process that I got to have my wedding party all in one place. There were 1 or 2 people that weren't able to make it, but on the whole, that trip was so special, and looking back on it now, I'm even more grateful for it because we did not end up getting to have our wedding party at our wedding. So once we get back from the bachelorette party, that's when everything started to get pretty serious in the US. This was about the first week of March in 2020, and people are starting to talk about cases. They're starting to talk about other countries that are having a lot of issues. This is when Italy was really, really big in the news. And Bryan's bachelor party was also scheduled to be in Colorado in 2 weeks. He ended up completely having to cancel that. And that was kind of the first major bummer with the wedding. But we thought, it's March, we're gonna shut down for 2 or 3 weeks. It's all gonna be over. And by the time our wedding comes around in late June, it's just gonna be a non-issue. So that was not a stressor at that point. We hadn't even thought about the possibility of having to reschedule. But it was also about that time that we decided, okay, having Nash in this apartment is really hard, and we think that it may be right for us to look into buying a home. Now, we had always said that we were gonna live in an apartment for about a year after we got married to really look for a house and just kind of, divide up the chapters of our lives and really extend all the fun new things. Yeah, okay. This was a lesson in you can't plan out your life. Sometimes your life just happens to you. And so after getting Nash, that was kind of the catalyst to really go house hunting. And we actually put an offer in on this house that we're sitting in right now the week that all counties surrounding Dallas went into lockdown. So it was a great time because we felt like we weren't gonna have a lot of offer competition, but it was also a stressful time because we're like, are we gonna be able to go look at that house again? Are we gonna be able to have an inspection? Are we gonna be able to interact with anybody during this home buying process if all businesses are shut down? Well, Fortunately for us, the home buying businesses, so inspections and surveyors and all of the different people involved, those were considered essential. So we were able to go through with the home buying process. And this was kind of our big distraction from should we start replanning our wedding. Gone were the days of worrying about wedding planning, and we were now trying to raise a new puppy and settle on our home buying experience. Every major speed bump you can hit in a home buying process, we hit. There were faked documents. There was a failed plumbing system. Our seller and our seller's agent were really horrible people to work with. It was really hard to get answers from our own realtor. We just made a lot of mistakes in the home buying process, and one day I'll outline for you at a high level what you could do better than we did, but that's a video for another day. So we end up barely screeching by and closing on this house during the first week of May, on Cinco de Mayo to be exact, with a set move-in date of May the 10th. We finally made it into our house, and this was right around the time where we had to make final decisions on our wedding. So in May of 2020, we ended up making the final call after many tears and lots of debate and going back and forth with our friends in our wedding party to go ahead and just make this a very intimate wedding situation, and we would have a big party later. There were so many factors that went into this decision, and we tried to salvage the picturesque, picture-perfect wedding that we had planned, and we just couldn't. The outlook that we had on this wedding was we don't want to put our friends and family, the people that we care about the most, in danger for a party that can be had at a later time. Now, our wedding venue told us that we had the option to push our wedding to another day in the future, or we can have our wedding on our set wedding day, but the maximum amount of people that we could have there is 65. That was the only way that they could properly social distance in both the chapel and the ceremony space. And so we ended up going with that option, but we didn't even go up to the 65 number. So for contrast, what our wedding was supposed to look like was gonna be like 180 or so people. And we had people flying in from all over. We invited people from different countries. We had probably 8 to 10 states represented and people that were supposed to be flying to our wedding. And so we ended up just determining that that was not in the best interest of our friends and family and some people that are immunocompromised and older that were essential to be at our wedding. Do you know what I mean? So we ended up going with just having our immediate family and any close friends that we had already had contact with in Dallas. I think we ended up having like 29 to 32 people or something in total at our wedding. So let's talk about vendor cancellation. Now that we have this entirely decreased wedding due to the restrictions of our venue, there were a lot of other people that we had to cancel in conjunction with this. First things first, the venue. What were their policies? Their policy said that you could have up to 65 people there, or you could reschedule your day. Bryan and I knew that we wanted to get married on June 26th. We were ready to get married in a backyard somewhere if the venue wasn't gonna let us have an actual wedding. We just wanted to be married because at the end of the day, that's what this whole thing was about. So we knew we were keeping our day, and quite honestly, there was no possible way we could have foreseen when it would be safe to have a wedding. I know people that were supposed to get married in May that rescheduled for November, and their venues are now canceling on them. We just wanted to avoid possibly rescheduling our wedding twice, and we're really, really glad that we did that. Our venue also would not refund us a single bit of the money that we prepaid. And to be honest, we would have gotten married in a backyard if that weren't the case. The venue ended up treating us like dirt because we weren't spending as much money. They ended up telling us that we needed to bring our own Bluetooth speakers because we had to cancel our band. We're horrible the day of. It was a really bad experience with that particular venue, despite how beautiful it is and despite how much we love our photos in that venue. Just be aware that your venues may not be the most accommodating during this time. They're going through their own struggles, but I think that our venue could have done a better job of recognizing what industry they're a part of and taking their clients' feelings into consideration. And that's all I'll say about that. That was our venue issue. Next, it was time for me to cancel hair and makeup. I didn't want somebody that close to me doing my hair and makeup, and honestly, that was something that I had a little bit of anxiety about going into the wedding because I was really afraid of being overdone and not looking like myself. We did lose our deposit with the hair and makeup person. I emailed her asking for a portion back if possible and just never heard back from her ever, so that was very strange, but didn't put much stock in it because I get it. Like, she had this freelance business that's also hurting during this time. So next, our band. We definitely didn't want to have this big big band for like 25, 30 people at our wedding. When we went to go talk to them about what our options were, we could not get a cent back. And we had paid, candidly, like $2,500, which is basically half the cost of the band. All they said was, we will waive the rescheduling fee. Please. Good thing we had plans to hold a party like a year later to celebrate this, which is still the plan, assuming the country gets a little bit back to normal next June, but to be determined. Right now, we do have that band rescheduled, so we did not get a cent back from the band. Our cake people. I wanted to call and cancel the whole thing because we probably could have gone to like Kroger and gotten a pretty inexpensive cake that would have gotten the job done. But of course, they also kept our deposit, then also told us that they wouldn't deliver the cake, and then our venue told us that they wouldn't hold the cake for us, but we had to pick up the cake the day before the wedding, so my parents had to like clean out their whole fridge to store our cake. So that was a whole other thing. Our rehearsal dinner venue. That restaurant was not even open. They were not even open to the public, not even at the 25% capacity that they could have been. And they were telling us you can't get any of your money back that you put down to reserve the space. That was the most unbelievable thing. They were not even operating. That's crazy. And at the time, parties of more than 6 couldn't eat together. And so we had this entire room booked for 40 people to eat in. So that clearly was never going to work. So that ended up having to be canceled. I have to pause this video right here as I edit it because I realized I spent way too much time talking about the vendors that did us wrong and wouldn't allow us to easily cancel things. And I forgot to even mention the vendors that were so wonderful and so accommodating given everything that was going on around us. So I want to call attention to our photographer and our florist. The photographer was awesome. She was so understanding. She wanted to hear about everything that we were going through. It has been so professional and so fun to work with this whole time. She easily allowed us to alter the number of hours that we had booked. She was just a gem. Her pictures are absolutely incredible. And then our florist. She also was so understanding, and she was like, I just can't imagine what you're going through right now, and I'm happy to do anything that I can to help out with this. She allowed us to cancel all of our bridesmaid bouquets and boutonnieres that we didn't need anymore. She allowed us to alter a lot of the table arrangements, and it all turned out beautiful. I loved my bouquet. I mean, she just went above and beyond, and it was gorgeous. So then the hardest part of the entire thing was sending out our invitations, which we had already had printed and addressed and ready to go, with a little insert that was basically like, for everybody's health and safety, stay home, basically. And we ended up hiring somebody to live stream our wedding. And this is a total highlight. With our original budget and everything that we had planned, we didn't have room in the budget to hire a videographer. But with a lot of cancellations of other things, it worked out. We could hire the videographer with room to spare. And that live stream meant so much to us. It allowed so many different people to join in and share in that special ceremony that wouldn't have otherwise been part of the day at all. And so if you're somebody that's toying around with just having your close family and friends there and you want, you know, your broader guest list to view, live streaming was an awesome choice. My parents are like, best money we ever spent. And that also came with like a video of our wedding day that we could also share with our friends and our family who weren't able to be part of it. So, and I think it's important for me to note here that the hardest part of our entire wedding day wasn't necessarily that we didn't get what we planned. It was not being able to have our best friends, the people that were members of our wedding party, be there with us on that day. The reason that they weren't there, and we went back and forth with this decision. I mean, I waffled hard and told people cancel everything, never mind rebook, never mind don't do anything if you haven't already, because it just doesn't make sense for you to risk it coming here. Our wedding party collectively represented 8 to 9 different states. It just wasn't right to put our older family members at risk having all of our friends fly in like that. So my maid of honor, Kessler, ended up organizing these wonderful toasts that everybody sent in video form that we were able to see at our rehearsal dinner, which ended up being outside in my parents' neighborhood and was wonderful. But I think in the end, that truly was the hardest part. And we're hoping that our party a year from now can really make up for that. But despite not having our friends there, honestly, the day went completely fine. But our friends and our family did everything in their power to make that day so special, and it was. I got to have brunch with my close family and friends, went to a workout class with my mom. We had some of our really close friends like Kessler and Ashley and Jordan and Emmett with us getting ready. And while it wasn't our whole wedding party, they were nice enough to FaceTime with us and just spend time with us on that day, just as if they were there in person. Our ceremony exceeded our expectations. We will cherish that part of the day forever. And having that live stream and being able to see that and rewatch that is something that we definitely value. And so if you are in a position where you have a little extra room in your budget, I cannot recommend videography enough. I think that it just really helps you to relive that day and kind of like see what you were feeling. And we really are so grateful for the team that ended up videoing our wedding. Without going into great detail, we could have done without our like 1.5 hour reception that came after that. Truth be told, the only reason that we ended up holding that was because the venue withheld our entire deposit and we wanted to get something for the money that we had already paid. And our pictures are gorgeous. The venue itself is beautiful. We're still happy that we chose the venue. We just wish that we would have been treated differently under the circumstances. So, one huge takeaway. We are still just as married as we would have been had we had this massive 6-hour party that we had planned. I think that this entire thing made us step back and really pare down what was important about a wedding. Bryan and I still got to have the ceremony that we wanted. We still got to say our vows in front of our close family, our immediate family that loves us the most, that raised us and watched us grow. And all of our friends and people that are so special to us got to watch that live. And that's one huge, great thing that we take away and are thankful for. We just love being married and we're so glad that we didn't push that off given everything going on right now. And we did it in the way that was, safe for everybody. It just wasn't worth putting other people at risk for. We can have that party later. Does social media sometimes get the best of me after this? Absolutely. I see people still having their full-blown weddings. There were people that I knew that had their full-blown wedding the day after me. Of course I wanted the wedding that I planned, and of course I wanted those memories. You are no less married than the person who got to have their full-blown wedding, and I think that's one thing to keep in mind. I feel like editing this is gonna be a trip because I've stopped and started and rephrased things, and I just wanted to adequately get across to you the kind of year that we've had. And it has been a crazy year, and we've made a lot of huge life decisions in a very short amount of time, but we wouldn't take a single one of them back. Adopting Nash, man, had we not done that, like our year would look completely different. He adds so much happiness and value into our lives, and we love having that dog. And then secondly, buying this house. This has been such a good growth experience for Bryan and me. Like, we learned how to manage our money together and, align our values and what we wanted to invest in, what we didn't want to invest in. And it's been so fun to have the creative freedom to work on and like design elements of our house. And Bryan trusts me and helps me hang things, and we've just had a blast. We didn't find that moving in together was like this really huge learning curve, but I think that's because we spent so much time together already and had gone through all of these massive life decisions together that living with each other and having like little tiny annoyances here and there were just not that big of a deal. So if you have questions, if you just want to vent in the comments, I completely hear you. I've been through those times of major tears and disappointment. If you like this video, then like it. Stick around, subscribe, join the community, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.